one other thing you've got going for you, and that is you're dealing with the human body. The human body is unique, and every individual human is unique and complex and infinitely variable. And yet the prosecution's entire case is premised on the simple concept that your client is not unique, is not variable. He is average. He is what is called average, because over and over again, as you educate yourself on the breath machine, you're going to find out that the manufacturers have assumed that your client is average. And it just isn't so. The assumptions of the machine are false. How many people here, by a show of hands, understand what partition ratio is? Okay, how many people know what 2100 to 1? Does that ring a bell to anybody? Okay, this machine, and by the way, you have a decision in this state. I'm sorry, what was the name of it again, David?
I think it's Taylor.
There's another one on partition ratio. Cotham, yeah. Which I have read it. I've talked to David about it. I've read it 5 times now. It's a short decision. I cannot understand it. It seems to keep. It says it keeps partition ratio out, but doesn't tell you why, really, and seems to leave open that you can get partition ratio in. Partition ratio is simply the assumption that for every unit of alcohol in your client's breath, there are 2,100 units of alcohol in the blood. So what does the machine do? And by the way, don't ever call this breath thing an instrument. The prosecution will call it that. You know, the cop will call it. It's not an instrument. It's a machine, like a washing machine. You know, the juries understand that. They understand that they don't work always that well. They break down. They're not reliable. An instrument sounds, you know, like a whole different thing. But this machine's got this little extremely simple computer in it. It's basically the same computer, by the way, that used to be used in those Pong games. I mean, it's a real basic computer. And it takes, to be simplistic here, it takes the reading of the breath and multiplies it by 2,100 times and tells you that's what's in the blood, because that's what the statute's concerned about, blood alcohol. That's what's in the blood. Well, that's fine, except that that's just an average, 2,100 to 1. It's an average. How do they know what your client's partition ratio is? Your partition ratio is different than mine. Your partition ratio right now is different than it will be this evening. It varies. The human body is wonderfully complex. They can't treat us all like averages, but they do. Now, what does that mean? 2,100 to 1, you know, how does it change? Well, very roughly, you can say for every 200 in the ratio, it changes the reading by 0.01. So, let's take an example. Try not to get too complex here. Let's say your client is a 1,300 to 1 ratio. That's an 800 variance. Equals 0.04 differentiation. Meaning, if your client is a true 0.07, let's assume his blood alcohol is 0.07, that highly sophisticated machine is going to report it as a 0.11. What's your client guilty of? Not DWI, not 0.08. He's guilty of being not average. And you should tell the jury that's what the prosecution is trying to prove. They're convicting a fictitious person. Now, an old friend of mine, Don Nichols, attorney in Minnesota, used to tell the jury, he'd look at him and he'd say, my client, sitting over there, is female, Chinese, and she's dead. And the state can prove it. The average person on this planet is female. The average person is Chinese. The average person is dead. Therefore, my client, my male, American, quite live client, is not. Okay. It's important to drive that point home, because once you educate yourself, you're going to understand that this is a recurrent theme throughout their case, as you understand the different, and it's not just the machine, by the way. That whole horizontal gaze nystagmus test is presumed that the client is average in many different ways. Okay. David asked me to give you some idea of how I prepare a case, or how my firm, I have an 8-attorney firm, and I've gotten to the point now where I'm semi-retired, and I let, they're all a whole lot younger, smarter, tougher than I am, and I sort of direct traffic. He was particularly interested in the questionnaire, and there is a questionnaire in the materials from my book, but we don't use a questionnaire anymore. I have 2 full-time investigators, a retired CHP, California Highway Patrol officer, and a retired Santa Ana Police Department DUI task force officer. And they do our interviews. They'll conduct a 2-hour interview of the client. They'll go into terrific detail on everything that happened that day, drinking patterns, medical conditions that might affect the FSTs, might affect the blood or breath tests, and so on. And then they will present a roughly 5-page arrest report, if you will, our version, to the attorney. And they will go into things like, was the person exposed to paint fumes, or was he pumping gasoline, or, these things all will affect a breath machine. Then the investigator will visit the scene of the arrest for the FSTs to see what it looks like, take pictures, videotapes. Will possibly go over the route of driving, may videotape the route. I had Amber, she's my CHP officer, about 3 months ago for trial, got a helicopter, videotaped the route of driving to show how it was impossible for our client to have done what the officer described. You should be using discovery motions. I understand things are a little different here in North Carolina on discovery, and there are some interesting aspects of it when it comes to, for example, getting an arrest report. You absolutely want that arrest report, and if you can't get it through the officer, through apparently cooperation, apparently he has discretion to give it to you or not, which is incredible to me in terms of confrontation rights, but get it through subpoena, through the DMV process. Get a court order, get a subpoena through the court, whatever it takes. But get a whole lot more than that. You want to get all of the calibration records, the maintenance records, the usage logs for the breath machine, the certification of the machine, of the lab if it's a blood, or the hospital if it's blood, of the officer to operate the machine. You want any video, possibly from the jail cell, security video, particularly if it's got audio, because you can find out if his speech really was slurred.